Sure is a hell of a time to be alive in this towering skyscraper we call Western civilization. It was built on sweat, blood, and faith. But today, it's on fire. Some started the blaze intentionally, while others scrambled to extinguish the flames. Yet most of us just stood around outside with our phones to capture the next viral clip. But we didn't always act like this. Back in the day, when a fire broke out, every able-bodied person got to work. There was no driving by or rubbernecking. But today, we're all tenants in this flaming high-rise, and most of us, to include myself, have had our feet kicked up pretending it's just a vehicle fire down the street. Unfortunately, it's not. But what happened? A small group of cultural pyromaniacs torched the Christian values that built this place. Equality, liberty, and the sanctity of life are the steel beams that have been holding us up. Now they've been swapped out with cultural chaos, diversity, and a Netflix queue that says, "You do you," while the smoke billows from within. Politicians try to fight back through policy, but half the time they're just spraying gasoline on the fire. People like Charlie Kirk use conversation and debate to retard the flames, but the lunatics downstairs put a stop to that. For a long time, the rest of us ignored the alarms, too busy scrolling our social media or watching The Bachelor to notice. Yet finally, it seems people can hear the buzzing alarms in the hallways, and Christianity is making a comeback. But is it too late? Thanks for stopping by NPC Overrider, where we challenge mainstream source code to develop independent thought, one user story at a time. Grab a damp rag, and let's check out the latest programming. Western civilization wasn't built on diversity quotas, corporate DEI newsletters, or coexist bumper stickers. It was built on unity, basic 10 Commandments stuff. Don't kill or murder each other, don't steal, don't lie. That's how some of us graduated from mud huts to luxury high-rises, while others still can't figure out indoor plumbing. The West ditched slavery, with England setting the trend in the 1800s, and the US followed suit after a bloody civil war, while slavery remains in practice in many non-Western nations today. Why? Christian-rooted morality mattered. Compare that to places like North Korea's state-sponsored sweatshops, or China's willingness to embrace McDonald's, but not the values that allowed the Golden Arches to rise to power. But as American success thrived, we got cocky. In the 1960s, the Flower Children trampled conservative values and questioned everything that allowed them not to just exist, but to live with more comfort and luxury than John D. Rockefeller. Prayer was banned in schools in 1962, the 10 Commandments were pulled from courthouses, and eventually saying Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays could earn you a one-way ticket to HR. Hollywood didn't help, painting Christians mostly as far-right lunatics or overbearing weirdos. Meanwhile, the dollar is tanking, education is in the toilet, and half of us are popping antidepressants like Skittles as we struggle to find purpose. Coincidence? Take a stroll through Chicago's crime-ridden streets or LA's tent cities and tell me how secularism's working out. But the anti-Christian psychos aren't just silencing conservative voices, they're hunting them. This fire isn't a metaphor, it's literal. For example, the Family Research Center counted 1,384 attacks on U.S. churches from 2018 to 2024, including arson, shootings, and bomb threats. That's an 8-fold spike in 5 years. On September 28th of this year, a deranged man drove his pickup truck into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan, where he killed 4 people, injured many others, and burned the place to the ground. In 2023, an anti-Christian terrorist killed 3 children and 3 staff members at the Nashville Covenant School, specifically citing anti-Christian sentiments in a demented manifesto. And we recently passed the 1-month anniversary of the attack on the Annunciation Catholic Church in Minneapolis, where 2 children were killed and 21 others were injured, mostly kids, once again in the name of transgender ideology. Across the pond, you wouldn't know it, but Muslims are slaughtering Christians by the thousands in Nigeria. The legacy media? Too busy crying over Palestine, Ukraine, or obsessing over Taylor Swift's engagement to notice. But there's a reason for their, quote, ignorance. The real fire starters aren't just bored and purposeless rioters torching the local Target in the name of George Floyd. They're the elites, media, politicians, and Hollywood big shots are constantly telling us that white Christians and the police are the source of all your problems. Why? Because they've spent decades selling us a bill of goods, that you don't need faith, family, or purpose, just a degree, a Tinder profile, and a Hulu subscription. Back in the day when blacksmiths raised blacksmiths and bakers raised bakers, life had structure. But at some point, we started telling kids they could be anything, and now they're drowning in options, anxiety, and student debt. Throw in a live for today attitude, and you got yourself a generation that's lost, lonely, and primed for secular manipulation. Enter Antifa. These cultural leaders blame Christianity for being sexist, as the Bible tells women to submit to men, yet ignore Ephesians 5's command for men to serve women sacrificially. Meanwhile, Muslims who stone girls for being raped tell women they can't go outside by themselves or toss gays off rooftops get a pass from the equity police. Funny how that works. As bad as things have gotten, people are finally beginning to notice the smoke is coming from within. That's why church attendance and affiliation are on the rise. Here's a quote from Newsweek from April. Quote, nearly half of young adults in England and Wales now say they believe in God or a higher power according to new figures, a striking turn that runs counter to the decades of declining beliefs across Western societies. Data from the U.S. reveals a similar trend, with the percentage of young adults engaging with the Bible and committing to Christianity is on the rise too. Findings from the American Bible Study spotted the first increase in Bible use and scripture engagement among younger adults since 2021, end quote. Also, if you saw Steven Crowder's newest episode of Change My Mind, a debate-style video segment where he engages college students on controversial topics, half of the participants, some of them teenagers, wore crucifixes, with one going as far as to ask Steven to pray with them. Behind the bulletproof glass, that is. The source of the resurgence? Young people are tired of the purpose and meaning crisis of endless social media scrolling, hookup culture, and woke ideology that leaves them empty. We see it in older generations as well, with prior liberal leaders like Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson discussing faith more. Once again, this is a global phenomenon, as the world's Christian population is expected to grow from 2.2 billion in 2010 to 2.9 billion in 2050, according to Pew Research. And by the way, you can find all the links to these sources in the release notes. Between 2010 and 2020, the Christian population of sub-Saharan Africa hit 1.1 billion, which is a 31% increase. Perhaps that's the reason for the targeted attacks in the region. The Christian population is also on the rise in other places like India, Indonesia, the Philippines, Russia, and Brazil, to name a few. In the UK, open borders and cultural chaos have Brits peacefully rallying in the streets, with crowds fed up with the status quo. Even in China, where Christianity isn't exactly favored by the authoritarian regime, followers of Christ are expected to reach 100 million by 2050. At home, churches are reporting a 15% attendance boost, and TPUSA chapters requests reached 120,000 as the last count I could find. For context, as of Charlie's assassination, the organization held about 900 college chapters and 1,200 high school chapters. Even Hollywood tangles with the revival. Angel Studios, the folks who brought us Sound of Freedom, launched The Chosen, a series about Jesus, not superheroes, which is pulling in millions into the story of faith. But is it too little too late? There's hard days ahead, for sure, between low birth rates, cultural rot, and a globalist communist force that would rather silence you than debate you. But it's not over. The skyscraper is still standing, and the revival is just getting started. So how do you get involved? Well, you can vote like your future depends on it. It does, and not just every 4 years. Let's stop treating our local church like that novelty store on the edge of town. Run for your local school board, volunteer for a conservative campaign, or just use the basic Christian ethics that allowed our civilization to thrive, which is now easier than ever. Politics has been reduced to basic morality. Abortion activists fought to remove the restrictions that previous pro-choice proponents fought for. Borders are now racist, and you're a transphobe if you don't think kids should get puberty blockers. One need not memorize tax code, omnibus bills, or Supreme Court rulings these days to be involved. Politics has been reduced to fire and water, and our house is ablaze. All you have to do is pick up a bucket. Well, that's going to do it for this version of NPC Overrider. I'm your lead engineer, Greg. All references are available in the release notes. If you want to help save the NPCs, please set the like button to true and open up a ticket in the comments section if you have an idea for a future release. But for now, it's about Beer 30. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks so much for stopping by. Have a good one.